If you're in business, you probably have a website, but can your site handle your growth? How many visitors before your site slows down or crashes? What about storage and data security? From web hosting to virtual servers, Pair Networks provides the online infrastructure you need to start, grow, and flourish. When it comes to security and updates, don't worry, we've got you covered. Our 24/7 US-based customer support is the best in the industry. No frustrating chatbots or sitting on hold for hours. Check out Pair.com today to learn more. That's PAIR.com.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we give new meaning to the term Poetry Slam. I'm your host, Heart of the Cards believer, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Henry Gilbert, and this podcast has made me want to go back to my hiragana lesson.
And who is our special guest today?
That is me, SungWon Cho.
And today's episodes are the Chihayafuru episodes 1 through 3.
これが
It's the name of the show.
Oh, man.
Yes. So SungWon, you might know him on Twitter as ProZD, making a ton of amazing, very relatable sketches about anime and video games. Also, you do a ton of voice acting. You're all over the place. You're a real renaissance man of nerddom.
That's right. Yeah,
yes. But this was your idea. I contacted you. We know each other through Maddie, friend of the show.
Right.
And we met at Disneyland, and I held back for about 2 hours after meeting you. And then, after we were sitting down, I was like, I like your videos a lot.
That's right. Yeah.
So everyone thank me for my self-control. But he's here, and I want to know why this anime. You actually made a video about trying to sell this anime to people.
That's right. Because basically the premise of the show is that a bunch of high schoolers their favorite game is Karata, which Karata is a kind of obscure Japanese sort of game where you have poetry cards in front of you and you're trying to listen to a reader read the verses. And again, as soon as I start, I just bore myself. It sounds so boring. But basically, they're trying to hit the right card with the correct verse before the other person. It's basically like a sports anime, but with poetry cards.
Interesting.
Not even basically. It's a sports anime, and I love sports anime.
Yeah, we usually give our history with the show, but my history with this show is you telling me about it and then watching it on this trip for research. So yeah, it was completely new to me. It is sports anime, but I feel like even if the premise sounds kind of dull, I think what the show does best is it's not expecting you to sort of play the game alongside the characters. There's just simply too much visual information on the screen to parse at once. And it also does a very good job of explaining the game and also explaining how nobody likes this game. People look down on the characters for being into it, and the fact that children are playing this game is amazing to the adults who are into it in this world.
Right. Really, I think any sports anime sounds boring if you're not interested in the sport. Like Haikyuu. Have you guys seen Haikyuu?
Oh,
or know of it?
the
It's the volleyball.
Volleyball, yeah.
It is genuinely one of the most exciting anime I've seen. Before I watched Haikyuu, I was like, volleyball? Who the fuck cares about volleyball? And then I watched it and I was like, I care about volleyball, or at least in the context of this show. So I'm pretty much down for anything. Like with anime, even if it sounds like obscure or like esoteric or something that I wouldn't normally be interested in, I'm usually willing to give it a try because I think Chihayafuru excels in that, like you said, it presents Karata in a way where you can understand it. You can't, unless you're a native reader or speaker, you can't read the poems yourself, but you understand what they're doing. You understand. I think in the first three, they explain like 1-syllable cards, 2-syllable cards. They explain like, these cards, you have to listen longer to the verse because they have the same 5 letters or what, not letters, but like words. Or I'm not a Japanese speaker, so I don't know.
None of us are.
Japanese sounds anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it does a good job of sort of walking you through it because, like a lot of people in the show, some people are like, what the hell's Karuta? Like, I don't like, even the main character, she's like, oh, that's just like that old game that people play, right? But then she's like, oh, there's like strategy and skill, and it's really, more to it than it looks.
Do you have any history with this, Henry? Have you heard about the show before?
No,
Yeah.
I only heard about it from watching Pro ZD Sketch. But I think at a time I didn't like certain anime just based on the genre they were. I was like, I wouldn't give this a try. But now I'm much more into like the execution of this makes me like it more than. The execution, like a good execution of a genre I like, I will give a try.
I'm just curious, what genres are you like not interested
Well, a big thing that turned me off was like harem anime.
in? Yeah, no, that's valid. You're still right about that.
Well, that was at the height of my anime fandom was like late 90s into early 2000s.
Sure.
And listeners have had to hear this a bunch of times we say it. But once I saw these like maid and harem shows, I was like, it's anime's not feeling for me right now.
Sure.
Like that's and so when I came back in, it usually had to be like a genre. It had to be a good execution of a genre, even if I wasn't into it. Like, JoJo was my big return to anime fandom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, harem. You're right. Harem, man. It's a stupid genre anyway. I think the ones that like work are something like Ouran and High School Host Club. If you're familiar with that, where it's like it's smarter than just a surface level harem anime, and it's like funny, and it has more value to it than just look at all these hot people. Not that there's anything wrong with hot people, but I like a little more to things. But you're right, like with anime, and with anything really, but with anime, I think a lot of people will sort of pigeonhole anime like, oh, that's just that. Whenever you see an anime parody in a Western like movie or show like South Park or like even like Spider-Verse, it was like, oh, anime is just this, like Speed Racer, Dragon Ball Z, like
And panties usually.
Right,
Sort of panty joke, yeah.
But like all other forms of entertainment, anime can have so much more variety in execution and tone and all that sort of thing.
I think a big one that got me into watching modern anime again was My Hero, because like I thought I was done with shonen stuff because I was like, I thought I'd recognized the pattern enough of like, I know the structure of how shonen series go. I'd watched enough of it, but then just the characters and emotion, and also the quality of Bones' animation in My Hero like brought me back to it, and it made me try new things. Same with like. Finally getting into JoJo, because JoJo, like, it was hard to see it officially anywhere for the longest time. Right. And plus, all those parts, it was just it seemed so daunting as an outsider, but now I'm super into that too. Yeah.
I think the gap in my knowledge is shoujo, which is why I'm glad I'm watching this, which is, I guess this is not shoujo, but josei, which is shoujo, but for an older audience. So shoujo is for girls ostensibly, and josei is for adult women. At least that's who it's marketed to. You can be a man and enjoy these things as well.
Of course, yes. Yeah. I'm confident enough in my own whatever that I don't give a shit. Like as long as it's good, it's good. And I do like you. It's clearly marketed towards women. Like you've got you guys in these first 3 episodes. You only saw them as kids.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, I think maybe like 10% of these 3, they're teens.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what's funny was when you were like, should we watch the first one? I was like, let's watch the first 3 because it like ends perfectly with like that's the end of the kids, and then it goes into the teen stuff after that. Like, if I could have had you watch one more, but I still think it's a good point to leave off. I still think there's a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about in the first 3.
Yeah.
But it sort of becomes like a kind of a love triangle thing between Chihaya and Arata and Taichi, the 2 friends. But it's more than just like a romance thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's still at its core like a high school sports show.
For me, shoujo is a gap in my knowledge because I am sort of superficial in that I am watching anime for animation and cartoons in general for animation. And shoujo shows don't normally have like cool fights or, like really cool action scenes or anything. They're usually pretty literal with depicting characters and rooms and modern day settings, which is why like some of the shoujo shows I do like are very creative in terms of how they present things visually, like Kari Kano and Koto-cha. They're a little sillier, they get a little more cartoony, but for the most part, the shoujo I've seen is you'll get like a super deformed character every once in a while, but they're not super visually interesting. But this show is very, very pretty, so it kept me interested.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of sakuga as much as in something like Naruto or something, where I feel like every week I see a new Naruto or Boruto scene where like, look at this incredible fight that I have no idea what's going on, but it looks cool. With Chihayafuru, I like, in terms of the animation, overall it's beautiful, I think. I think the way they animate the card striking in some shots are just striking. Like, I think the direction of the animation in the game itself really amplifies it. Haikyuu does a very similar thing where they make their spikes and their moves so visceral. Like, it's so exciting. Whereas, I've watched Karuta being played in real life because we were at a street festival in, I think this was DC. And it was like a Japanese Sakura street festival, and they had people playing Karuta just on the street. And I was fucking nerding out.
Yeah, it's just like Chihayafuru.
But it was interesting watching it because if you're not playing it, it just looks like they're just bam. Like, it's just you don't get the slow motion shots or everything. But what I love about the show is it makes you get into the mindset of what they're feeling and what they're like. And I think if you're really good at Karuta, you would also kind of look at that game from that perspective. Not just them hitting cards, but you're like, oh, like, they reacted really quickly, or that sort of thing.
Well, that's what I love about sports anime. Even, when I've watched those and I don't care about the sport, just hearing characters explain high-level skills.
Why it was cool.
It's like, wait, why did that happen? Don't you see? This all happened because he knew to make that move then. Like, that's why, like, in Dragon Ball, my favorite ones were the tournament arcs, and I was sad when they went away in the Z era, just because I just love people watching a tournament happen and explaining a move after they do it. Like, you get one punch, and then people talk for 2 pages about why that punch mattered. Yeah,
I do want to talk a bit about the game itself, just to give a bit of history about it. It's not super long, and it might not mean a lot to you. I mean, I talked to Nina Matsumoto, a friend of the show. She's a Japanese Canadian.
Okay.
And she was only familiar with Karuta, the non-poetry version. So I think it's still fairly obscure. I think this anime and manga series popularized it again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But this history goes all the way back to the 16th century. So Portuguese traders introduced trading cards to Japan, or playing cards to Japan. And the Japanese transliterated carta as Karuta. So that's where Karuta comes from. The Portuguese word for card.
Interesting.
Fast forward to some point after this, a playing card game named Uta Karuta, literally meaning poetry cards or song cards, that was developed based on the poetry contained in the anthology Hyakunin Ishu, which are basically 100 poems from 100 poets who lived in the Heian era, and that was from 794 to 1185. This is very dry, but it'll get more interesting after this, I swear.
Just like the anime.
Yes, I'm not selling you on this, but the point of this game is basically a reflex / memorization game where these 100 cards are put on the floor containing these poetic verses. Someone will read the first verse, and you have to find the second verse in front of you. So it's about knowing the 100 verses, but also being able to find them in front of you before your opponent does. And that is the game, period. And whoever has the most cards at the end of a match wins. And they build 2 25-episode seasons out of this.
Right.
44 manga books to date, and a third season coming. And I think there's 2 live-action movies.
There are live-action films. It's pretty successful. Like, I think one thing that is maybe not correct about that is, at least in the show, it's not who has the most cards at the end. You literally eliminate the other person.
Yes, actually, I think there are different
there might be
variants.
variations.
Yeah,
Okay.
There are like 3 or 4 different rule sets, and even in the anime, it's like, well, here's how it works if we're playing as a team, and here's how it works if we're playing single player Karuta. But that is essentially it. It's a very, very simple premise. It's just like finding the thing based on what you have memorized. But even in 3 episodes, the show does a lot with that, and I really want to see where it goes from there. They already show you, like, well, here are different strategies for this game, and I just want to see, like, how do they possibly draw that out? Because it reminds me of Kaiji in a way, where it's like Kaiji, it's like that game is also, it starts with a card game, paper, scissors, rocks.
Right.
And you're like, well, how could they draw this out for 13 episodes? They do.
Not all the way through, but
yeah,
you're
that
right.
first arc is like 11 episodes,
it's
and you're
pretty
like,
long,
how could they? And they do it, and they keep you entertained, and that's what this does too.
Yeah. Although I hear the mahjong stuff later, it's a little hard to get into.
Yeah, I did not follow the Kaiji Guys manga. Mahjong manga / anime, because you do have to know how to play mahjong,
right?
To follow that.
And that's why I think Chihayafuru is great, because you don't need to know anything about this game to enjoy it. It assumes you don't know anything.
It's one. Chihaya is such a great, lead character in the show, because she is. That's another thing I love that really can get me into sports or these style anime, of like, a likable main character who has to have everything explained to them. I'm like, yeah, this is me in the show too. I need to learn everything. Like that's what I love about Chihaya.
And I think she's starting at the same baseline of knowledge as the audience, where it's like, I don't know what these poems are, or even like how this game is played, but she learns along with you.
She knows like baseline.
Yeah,
like, she's played it in school. Like, but she's like, oh, I kind of know these poems, and I played this weird little game a couple times. But basically, yeah, she's like in terms of like real Karuta,
Pro level.
One thing I want to talk about, like with this show is. I relate to how much Arata and eventually Chihaya loves Karuta. That's me with board games. Like there's a moment in episode 1 where Arata says to Chihaya, like he finds out that Chihaya knows how to play, and he's just like, "Let's play!" And then they're at his apartment, and he brings out the cards, and he's like, "Let's play!" And he just starts setting it up, and she's like, "What the hell?" That's me if anyone I know has played board games at all, and I'm like, let's play. Which, speaking of which, have you guys played board games?
I love board games, but I can't find anyone to play with anymore.
Okay.
Like post college.
At some point,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to get you over to play.
I'm a big fan of big fan of Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Oh, okay, cool,
It's,
cool.
it's one of my favorites.
Is that one of the lying to each other games?
No.
I don't like those. I'll play a board game. I am not a board game aficionado, though. But,
Okay.
I also like German ass board games where it's just like you're just trading blocks of wood.
like Agricola
And Catan and Casserole or whatever.
Carcassonne.
Carcassonne, there we go.
Yeah.
But hey, if you're inviting me over, I'll play.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say, like, I can relate to his passion and eventually her passion for the game that much. And what I love about the show is that you're just kind of introduced to this community. Like in episode 3, they go to the is it episode 3 or episode 2? Where they go to the club, the Karuta club, and they're like, oh, look at all these people. They're all playing Karuta. Like this many people like care about Karuta this much. That's like board game geek. That's discovering, oh, so many people know so much about this.
That makes me think, are there board game anime?
There's one coming.
Okay. Is it a licensed game or is it one they make up for the show?
So it's I don't remember the name of it. I tweeted the trailer, but I forgot the name. But it's fascinating because they have fully licensed games in it. It's just a board. It's a I think it's a high school anime about a board game club, and they like show shots of real games. Like you see like Catan and like. I'll look it up later and show it to you.
But it is something that is they're actually doing now.
They are, and I think it's like getting more popular. Like I think board games. I just turned this into a board game. We'll get back to Chihayafuru in a second. But I think like as board games have just gotten more popular here and in Japan as well. Like there's one big company I think that licenses all the English releases, and I think this anime like. Got the licenses all from this company. So you see, they go into a board game shop. Every single board game is a real board game. Like I actually tweeted, I like looked at it, I was like, here are all the games I see in this one shot.
Wow.
I'm just gonna hijack this podcast.
You can take over the show.
And talk about everything I like to talk about. But bringing it back, board games to me is Karuta to these characters, and it's like watching someone fall in love with their new favorite, almost life-defining hobby.
Yeah, well, Arata actually is the character I identify with most in it, just because I think a lot of people can identify like that, liking a niche thing that you think nobody else could like, and so you just never talk about it.
Sure.
But when somebody finally expresses interest, you're like, oh, well, okay, yeah. Like, for me, that is pro wrestling. And, specifically non-WWE pro wrestling. I'm like, okay, you guys know this? Like, and
here's the good shit.
Yeah, here's the good shit. Like, don't insult me by mentioning WWE. I'm talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, shit.
And honestly, though, there are people who go way deeper than me into Japanese wrestling. Like New Japan is like the easy mode of learning about Japanese wrestling.
It's like the Catan of board games.
Yes, yeah, I get that.
He's
reference.
right.
But
one day you'll understand.
I do want to go over a bit of the history of this this property. So Chihayafuru, based on the manga by Yumi Suetsugu. Have you read this this manga at all?
I have not because I there's some anime where I'm like, I'm just gonna wait till they release the anime because I love the anime so much. Like My Hero Academia is the same way.
Oh, me too.
Like
me
I
too,
don't read
yeah.
the manga because I want to be surprised by the anime.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, like I would read like all of Naruto and Bleach and whatever before the anime, and then you would just end up comparing it to the anime.
Yeah,
and-
that's in your head.
right.
Yeah.
So with Chihayafuru, especially since it's my favorite anime, and this is how I experienced it first. Like if I had read it first, sure, but I watched it first, and now that season 3 is coming so soon, I'm just like, I don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, I mean, not all of it is localized into English. So this has been running in Japan since 2007 in the manga anthology Be Love, which specializes in josei manga, so manga for women, for adult women.
Sure.
And so there are 41 volumes to date. There are 17 localized so far. And the creator, I don't think anything else that she has created has come out in English. So she began her career in 1992 with the series Taiyo no Romance. Something interesting happened to her in October of 2005 before this manga series started. She was outed for being a plagiarist, including stealing more than just ideas. She was like legit tracing things from other manga. So she took a 2-year hiatus, and this is her sort of rise from the ashes. Like she was allowed. I was surprised. Like I figure like in Japanese society, based on every stereotype I know, like this would be too much shame to recover from. But she was able to do it. Like
You'd
too much
think
public
so,
shame.
But with Rurouni Kenshin, I don't know if you heard anything about that.
I think men are like in every country. Men are allowed to do whatever they want.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I'm glad she got a second chance because she really fucking came back with like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, so this started in 2007, but since 2009, she's also been working on something called Couverture, which is still running. So she has 2 weekly serialized manga running
okay.
at the same
Wow.
time. So she's doing a lot.
That is a lot. Man, it's got to be a lot of assistance in that studio,
Yeah.
too, just for that production. That's not like a slam on an artist. Like, she can't draw it all herself, but like everybody uses assistance. But that kind of output,
Yeah.
Well, I was going to bring up Bakuman before. Like, this show really reminds me of Bakuman as well. Like, that it turns kind of into a shonen manga, except about making manga.
Right. Yeah.
It's, and the way they passionately describe stuff, it reminds me. I see a lot of that in Chihayafuru as well.
And speaking of Bakuman, I can see why she would want to plagiarize because manga authors can never stop. They can never sleep. They can never stop. So it's like, I like that pose in Slam Dunk. What if I drew it in my book?
Right.
I can understand why she was able to do that. But she's won a ton of awards for this. It's still running. It's very popular. It's still going. And like I said earlier, 41 volumes of this.
Sure.
I'm not sure what part of the anime that covers, though.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what it covers, but you can buy 17 volumes of it digitally through Kodansha.
And I think they're
Yeah.
still going with that too.
Yeah, they haven't stopped.
Yeah. And I think I think it's just successful enough here where they'll keep going.
Yeah.
I want it to have even more. Every person I've shown to or recommended it to, like whether it's people I know in person or people who are like on like, oh, you talked about the show and I really liked it. Everyone's liked it. It's a huge success rate, and I can't say that for every show that I like.
It seems big on Crunchyroll too because they did a simul subs back when it was airing. So I guess season 1 was in 2011, season 2 is in 2013, and they're going to have season 3 like running as soon as it runs in Japan.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Wow, a
it's-
simulcast in 2011.
Yeah.
That was. It feels like they do most things simulcast now, but like in 2011,
Yeah.
was pretty new for them.
no dub, but this is an undubbable show.
I mean,
It has a dub.
Oh, it has a dub.
does have
Oh
a
my
dub.
God! I
Yeah.
just assumed. Okay, please, I'm ignorant. Tell me more. Have you said
I
you've
have not
this
seen
dub?
the dub, but it does have a dub.
I'm just like these are Japanese poems. How? I guess they have to work very hard.
I'm actually very curious.
Yeah.
I feel like this show, and I usually watch stuff subbed anyway, but this one I feel like I kind of have to watch subbed just for hearing the poems in general, you know. But it does have a dub. I have
Interesting.
no
Wow.
idea anything about it, but I know it
Well,
exists. 'cause
God
I have
bless
the
those
Blu-rays.
people for dubbing this show.
Yeah, I mean, they went for it. They didn't need to, but they did.
I really feel for those localizers that they have.
Right.
They have to write a whole poem, like an original poem that has to sound natural,
And
like,
within that very specific delivery style.
Yeah, it has to fit that pentameter. Yeah,
And then have a second verse that. Oh, never mind. Well, I guess. Never mind.
Now they say the second verse.
They say the
some
second
of the
verse, but I
times,
guess
yeah.
the way the characters match them they have to localize that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, like, because they'll be like, oh, like these 5 poems have the same 3 syllables. It's like, how did they do that in the dub? I'm very curious now.
Yeah. We're sorry we failed you, audience. I just assumed like they could never.
But they
They
did.
did.
Well, I mean, I'm a sub snob anyway. I try to. Sometimes I do still like to do dubs just to appreciate art more, but
Sure.
I can't get rid of my 90s snobbery of like, I read the subtitles. I'm a better weeb than you. Like, yeah.
Dubs have gotten a lot better though.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be pretty rough. But yeah, I mean, for me, I watch subs because I'm a big Seiyu fan. Like I know all the Seiyu, like I know what their rules are and stuff. So I'm just like a sucker for that kind of thing.
You know, I didn't I only really started paying attention to Seiyus beyond the biggest stars of the 90s that I knew them. But
Sure.
Currently, like the last time I really got into it was watching the first season of One Punch Man, and it hit me like, oh, I kind of recognize that voice.
Yeah.
All in subtitles.
Which voice?
Well, the big one was the one where it finally clicked for me that they were all getting like super guest stars
Yeah.
of Seiyus was in. I think it's the third episode. They fight like a bug guy no, not the bug lady, the guy after that, who like has an old man voice.
Okay.
And I realized it was the actor who actually just passed away who played
Inchoi Shizuka?
who played Jonathan Joestar in JoJo Part 2.
that was a huge loss. He's actually in Chihayafuru.
Oh, he is.
He's you remember Dr. Harada? He's like
he's
Oh,
in-
that's
yeah.
him. Okay, wow.
which breaks my heart because I think I had to replace him
Yeah.
for season
Yeah.
3.
So, Henry, you mentioned One Punch Man. This episode and the entire series was animated by Madhouse, which is something we talked about before. So they're doing the third series as well. So they've done things like Cardcaptor Sakura, Trigun, Death Note, Paranoia Agent, Hunter x Hunter, and the Cardcaptor reboot. And in fact, the director of this series, Morio Asaka, was the director of the Cardcaptor Sakura series in 1998 and of the new one too. So he's been at Madhouse since then,
Okay.
directing tons of stuff like Monster, Chobits, Nana, Kaiji, and My Love Story. So
he
this-
did Monster and Kaiji?
Yes.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
No wonder this show's so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you guys have seen Monster?
I've seen a bit of the anime, but
I've read all the comic, but only a little of the anime.
the anime is very well done from what I've seen so far.
Anime is great.
Yeah.
I've watched and read both. Kaiji's amazing. I didn't know that. Like I'm learning stuff on this podcast too. But yeah, that's a crazy good like selection of work.
I got into Monster right when it was getting delisted from platforms and you couldn't get it. Like,
Remember they released that DVD set and that
Yeah.
didn't even have the right because they couldn't get the music licensing from the composer and then they stopped after one set. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay. I guess I can never own this.
I
ever.
heard the dub for that is very good too. People have
Yeah.
been saying the dub for Monsters is good, but it's lost to time.
Right.
Yeah,
It
but
was
the-
on Sci-Fi Network or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because a friend of mine directed the dub for that.
Really? Okay.
And yeah, he's like, there's no real way to watch the dub because they didn't release it anywhere.
I feel like almost all of Urasawa's stuff is like impossible to find
Right.
outside of like the 2 or 3 manga that have come over here. But yeah, we're going to take a brief break and we'll come back to talk about the 3 episodes of Chihayafuru.
気づいてしまって冗談交じりかき消したそれぞれの歩く道は別々とあの時描いた夢で溢れた青写真とまた違う明日でもいいさ今はちはやふ思い胸に抱いて目指した先に何があるんだ今なら掴めそう
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the break for the What a Cartoon episode for Chihayafuru. I'm Bob Mackey, drunk as a poet on payday, and who is here with me for this break?
Henry Gilbert and I am practicing my hiragana right now. Lale lule lo.
Got a fancy boy over here. And in case you're wondering, everything that we do here is supported by the Talking Simpsons Network at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And if you want to help out, we've got lots of stuff to offer you, plenty of podcasts that are behind a paywall. So if you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you will unlock all of those. Everything we made for the past 2+ years, including all of our limited miniseries. Those include Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, and the recently released Talking of the Hill. And that will also include our upcoming miniseries this fall. And any miniseries we do in the future will always be behind that $5 paywall. If you sign up for $5 today, you'll also get all of our interviews we've done, all of our end-of-month community podcasts, all all of our season wrap-ups and deleted scene specials and so much more. Dozens and dozens and dozens of bonus podcasts that you probably haven't heard. And we have even greater rewards for those of you who want to sign up at the $10 level. You'll not only get all of our $5 rewards, but also an extra long podcast every month about a movie chosen by our patrons. Henry, what is that?
That is the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, where me and you go through a different animated feature film once a month. The most recent one is Beavis and Butthead Do America, and that's just the start of them. Going back through the archives, you've got Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, a Goofy Movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aladdin, Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation, and so much more. Over 24 hours of premium content, only available to $10 and up folks at the Patreon. Whether you sign up for that at the start or you up your current $5 pledge to it, you will definitely get your money's worth with all that stuff. And support like that helps me and Bob afford trips to LA like this one to record with awesome people like SungWon Cho. So you definitely want to support us at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons for more magical podcasts like this one.
And if you sign up today at the $5 level, you will also get all of the podcasts that we do 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And in case you're wondering, when you sign up, you'll get a nice little code you can drop into any podcast player of your choice, or you can listen to our bonus podcast through the Patreon app, which is very good. So you can fit our bonus podcast into your existing podcasting lifestyle really easily. It's so simple to do. But again, that is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and we'll let you get back to Chihayafuru episodes 1 through 3 with our special guest, SungWon Cho. So we're back to talk about the first 3 episodes of Chihayafuru. These are on Crunchyroll, by the way, if you would like to watch them. Henry, you said you had a few questions about SungWon's anime fandom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, did you like American show, like, animation before you started getting into anime as a kid? Or, because, you were born in 90s, so that's when, like, anime was way bigger in the late 90s than it was in the early 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say my very first favorite cartoons were like Looney Tunes. Mm-hmm. We used to have tapes and did you ever have those 6 hours of classic cartoons on one VHS tape because they're all free?
Domain,
yeah. That used to be like my. Oh, I would put that in and be like, I'm going to watch this whole thing. Never watched the whole thing, but I would marathon so many cartoons that way. And then, I would watch, I think I watched but Western cartoons before anime. The first big anime that really struck me was Pokemon, actually. I'd watched, that was one that really seized my attention. I was like, I have to watch this. I totally missed out on Sailor Moon. Dragon Ball Z I enjoyed, but that was more for my cousins. For me, but Pokemon and then Digimon and then just whatever they put out. They had the Fox box would do Yu-Gi or was that no that was Kids WB, but there was Yu-Gi-Oh, all the kids anime, Ultimate Muscle,
If the 4 Kids takeover of Fox,
right? Yeah,
no, that was my husband's generation too. All the 4 Kids stuff, he has to tell me, you don't understand how cool all these 4 Kids things were, because the only...
You won't know until you hear Sonic singing the national anthem with
my
Luffy.
God.
Yeah, I watch that every 4th of July.
It's the way to celebrate our country.
Yeah, and Yu-Gi-Oh, you also did an episode of OKKO that is one of the best ever. It's so good. Yeah, and I mean, how'd you do that one? Or how they want you specifically for that, or did you audition?
For Wacky Jacks, first of all, if anyone has not seen OKKO, it is genuinely one of the best cartoons. I think.
It's fantastic.
It's so funny. Even before I was on it, I was like, God, this is a good show. I think people on the storyboard team had wanted me in previously. but it was just a matter of logistics because I also was not living there at the time. I think they actually wanted me for a different episode originally. I don't know if I want to say if I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't have any confirmation. So I won't say that. Anyway, a friend of mine, Dave Allegri, who was the sort of he and his board partner Haewon were the storyboard team for that episode. And they were very interested in trying to get me to do it specifically. And then it was just a matter of like he even showed me the designs for the characters before I was even confirmed. But then eventually it all worked out, and I flew out and did it, and it was one of the best experiences of my life.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Just the drawing of that character makes me laugh.
Yeah. What was funny was that Dave has actually did not grow up watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Because he grew up in the Philippines, and that was not like a really. I don't think he like watched Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if it was even on there. So I remember he like asked me a couple questions like, "Do you have any like what are some like tropes in like Yu-Gi-Oh?" And I like over DM, I was like, "Oh, I don't know. There's this and this and this." But I don't know. I'm sure like it was a whole collaborative effort there of everyone just being like, got to do this shit and this shit. But in terms like it was, they brought me in and I got to do not just one ridiculous character, but two ridiculous characters in it. Basically channeling my inner Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was great.
Your acting in it, I think, really captured like just stylistically late '90s dubbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think originally, I think Ian was thinking like more of almost for Johnny, more of a Kuwabara voice from Yu Yu Hakusho,
Right.
Which would have been an interesting take too. But when I saw the design, I was like, I know exactly how I want this character to sound. I want him to sound like just a punk ass '90s anime dub little shithead. And then the villain of it is essentially Maximilian Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh!
I needed my husband to explain all that to me. He's like, no, that's exactly Maximilian, and then he like did a Google image search, like, see?
Very much. It's like him combined with Sephiroth. But yeah, that's how I got involved with that. And I think I was flattered that they wanted me for that episode too, because I'm in that episode. I'm in like 80% of that episode. Like that's like me talking like the whole time, basically. But it was a blast.
That's awesome. No, I just that episode too just captures the feeling of like being at a strip mall card shop, and where you have to hang out with the only people that play the games.
Shado realm.
Yeah. See, I never got into TCG scene, but I was on the outside of it because for 4 years I was super into HeroClix.
Okay. Yeah.
HeroClix was sold at the same place, so I swam in similar circles.
Now, correct. Which one is HeroClix? The one with the barcodes, or is HeroClix the one with the big, crazy map?
The big map, and then figurines of Marvel and DC superheroes.
And they click.
Yeah, and every time you take damage, like, oh, that's 3 damage. Okay, click, click, click.
Yeah.
It was a much simpler mech warrior, basically what it was.
Gotcha.
And, I loved HeroClix so much. Like, I guess that was like my Karuto game.
Yeah. They should make a HeroClix anime.
Yeah, the too much licensing. They have to deal with DC and Marvel to do them too. That would never
that's when they
happen.
were like okay with being in the same room
Slightly,
together.
yeah. All pre-Disney stuff. Now there's no way they could do that.
Right.
Yeah. It was a special time.
But Japanese poetry card games, everybody.
yes,
We're
no,
talking about Chihayafuru, episode
let's get back
1.
to what's really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Episode 1 is called Now the Flower Blooms. It begins with the very classic shoujo set piece of it's the first day of school, which happens, of course, in spring in Japan. So the flower petals are falling. And this is when we meet our main character, Chihaya, who is actually in the name of the show herself. And I love this character. She's a great main character for a show. She's very a Genki style character, like very cheerful and energetic and emotional. So you kind of want that as the core of your shoujo show.
She's hilarious. Like from the get-go, she's just a funny character. And I like that she's not just, I'm just a pretty girl who, look at these cute boys. Like she doesn't actually, she might care about boys a little bit, but Karuta is her main interest, and all she cares about is doing that. And she's like very headstrong, very goofy, I love the character. Like,
Yeah.
she's such a great protagonist.
She's sort of like a dork, but she's also very beautiful because she's living in the shadow of her her older sister who's a model.
But what's interesting is she doesn't give a shit about being pretty.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Any other manga would be like, I'm so jealous of my sister and I'm in the shadow. She actually doesn't care. What I love is that she doesn't care about looking pretty, and she doesn't care about her. She's proud of her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the show is her being supportive to a fault.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
not, she needs to be like just a little bit more selfish to like,
Sure.
or at least a little bit more like looking out for herself, you know, not
Right.
just always supporting other people.
Yeah.
Well, and she has the kind of naivete that I really like in a anime protagonist too. That gets her into trouble sometimes, or she just says the first thing that comes to her head.
Right.
And same with like I love it. The first time you see her on screen in the show is she's like defying societal norms, but she doesn't even know she's doing it.
Yeah.
Like she's just like, well, you said I couldn't stand on this chair in a skirt, so I put
on
the
pants.
Yeah,
And then she
what
starts
do you
taking off the
want?
skirt, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Like, she doesn't know. She doesn't care. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about Karuta, so who cares?
Yeah. So this is sort of the framing device for the flashback the next 3 episodes will take place. And so we meet Taichi, her old classmate, who was going to go to a school way further away, but now he's coming to the same school as her. And I mean, you've seen the series, but I get there's kind of like, I like you, but I don't want to admit it sort of thing going on there.
There's definitely at least strongly from Taichi's side.
Yeah.
That he's very much interested in Chihaya.
And sort of like acting annoyed that she's not being feminine enough and, kind of defying some norms.
Well, I like it's classic childhood friend stuff too. I get the feel from it, but that's another appealing like naivete of Chihaya is that it seems pretty obvious to any viewer how Taichi feels about her, even just in all the flashbacks you see, and she just doesn't get it. Like
Right.
she just sees them as the best of friends. Like
Yeah.
even though she is like more familiar with him than I think girls are supposed to be with boys in society. Like especially when she's like Taichi, and just like nudging him and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so playful that you could almost see it as romantic, but like that's not how that's not her reasoning behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on, which you said with him wanting her to be more feminine, I actually don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think he teases her, like, oh, you're not that. But Taichi actually really likes Chihaya despite whatever, like her acting like the way she is. Because even when they're children, he's very much like interested in
That's
her.
true, yeah.
Like he is we'll go into how much of a dick he is as a kid. But he's like a dick to her, like, oh, you look like a boy or whatever. But he clearly has feelings for her when he's a kid. And the way Taichi is like this pretty boy character, and can clearly get like any girl he wants. Like it's throughout the show, it's like lots of girls are very interested. Also like background characters are very interested in Taichi, like, oh, he's so hot or whatever.
Yeah, one of the first things we learn about him is that he has a girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who he's not even that interested in. But for him, it's like he just is very into Chihaya for who she is.
Yeah, you're right. In that first scene where they meet up, she's like, "Oh, you have a girlfriend?" And he's like, "I don't really care about her." So I think he's trying to let even her know, like, I'm still available.
interested,
But
yeah.
he's saying he's trying to play it cool, maybe trying to play it too cool. I think.
Yeah.
I love that scene because it only really struck me in the second viewing I did of it, but there's so much like little subtle stuff to it that he's on the phone and he doesn't even, it seems like he's trying to not let her know he's talking to a girl. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to mess up my chances here.
Yeah.
But then she's like, she's so perceptive. She's like, that was your girlfriend, wasn't it? And he thinks, you can tell that he's thinking, I just blew it. Like, she should know. And then her only reaction is like, a girlfriend means you can't play Karuto anymore. Like, that sucks. And she just turns around.
And then even he's like, oh, she actually cared a little more about like this. Like, it's,
he wanted her to be jealous, not sad.
She's
that he
like,
couldn't
oh, you
play.
can't play Karuta because he had a girlfriend. Yeah,
And
it's a great
then,
scene.
so they start wondering about their friend Arata, we have not seen yet, and that's
Sure.
when the flashback starts happening, and we see their story as children, how they grew closer together through this card game. And it begins with his name is, so we'll call him Arata, but throughout this he is called Wataya, which is his last name, right? Not until they become more familiar, we get the famous, like, I'll call you by your first name scene, which is a very
we'll
big
get into
trope.
that
Yeah.
later. Oh my god.
Yeah. Which was like, when I first started watching anime, I was like, well, what's the big deal? But then I was like, I had to learn why that was a big deal.
Oh, you didn't know before watching it?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, like when I was a kid and,
Oh, yeah,
seeing
yeah,
those
yeah.
scenes, you're like, well, yeah, I call my friend Henry.
Yeah,
What's
I call you Bob. job. Who cares?
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, here's culturally why.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But yeah, we see Wataya or Arata. He is the new transfer kid. He's from a different area of Japan. He has a different
Fukui,
accent.
yeah.
He's like a different dialect.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like compared to like they usually compare to like Southern.
Yeah.
Like a little hickish, quote unquote.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things in like late '90s. Does like ADV was famous for it, where
Osaka
like
and Azumanga
yeah, it's like
Daioh.
okay, it's the Osaka accent that means Texan. It's a
Yeah.
Texan accent, or the Southerner in the Southerner waifu in Love Hina. I forget the blonde one. Like they would give her a Southern accent too. I remember.
What's interesting about Osakan accents is that it's even though they always go Southern with it. So did you watch Azumanga Daioh or no?
Oh, I love Azumanga.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The ADV manga adaptation actually gave her a New York accent, which I actually think kind of fits Osaka a little bit better because Osakans are known for being kind of boisterous and like very loud, like hey, I'm walking, kind of that equivalent.
Yeah.
But they always go Southern, which is interesting because they want to do that dialect. It's almost like a combination of both. I feel like.
Yeah, I've seen both things. I've seen the sort of the Brooklyn accent be applied in the Southern accent too.
Well, because I definitely have seen with maybe not so much with Osaka, but I think I feel like I've seen in other anime where someone is from geographically south of Tokyo. They're treated like this country bumpkin. They don't understand
Right,
that kind
right.
of stuff. Yeah.
In this case, he's from the north, or like the middle and the north of Japan, which there are so many Japanese dialects that this
Sure.
is we can't get into them here, but
I think
he is
Southern
different.
fits for this.
Yeah. But I guess Tokyo, the Tokyo version of the Japanese language is like considered like standard spoken dialect you hear in movies and TV shows and news programs and things like that.
I know from people who learned the language that they're taught Tokyo style, and then if they move to somewhere else, they learn other dialects.
Right.
Yeah, so we meet Arata. He's being made fun of for several reasons. First, he has a different dialect. They recognize that he's poor. And we see from the beginning, I mean, Chihaya is very endearing from the beginning, but we see her that she's saying, well, of course, he's being quiet. You're making fun of him.
Right.
And you see she is a good person from this scene.
It's interesting because she's not even doing it in like a self-righteous way. She's just very matter of fact. Like, I wouldn't want to be talked to if if people were writing down things to make fun of me. Like, I wouldn't like that at all. Like, but she's almost like apologetic. She's like, sorry, very matter of fact, I don't like that at all.
Well, I also like her more of her like heroic naivete is when she says, "Oh, I wouldn't want people making fun of me." Everything I said, they're like, "Oh, that's not what we're doing." No. She's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry."
I misunderstood. Yeah,
She just believes.
seems like you were being real dicks, but
She's sort of just like naturally selfless without thinking about it, which is
Right.
what happens in the next scene where she's waiting for the newspaper and we see Arata deliver it, and you find out that he has all 200 stops memorized. It's his first day,
Sure.
and he has every Tokyo stop memorized on this newspaper delivery trip. And she was waiting for the paper because her sister is in the paper,
Right.
And she's so excited for her sister. Her dream is for her sister to become the top model in Japan.
yeah, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
I also like that once she gets it, like she doesn't understand why second place would be bad for someone or why that would make them upset. Like just I got a feel of that in the other episodes too. Like competition seems more important to her than just place you're in, right? Yeah, or, I mean, I guess later on in the show, does she care more about winning,
I think for her, she does want to win. But there's first off, I think there's this whole thing of if I win, I get to keep play more. Like I get to play more and more and more. But there is definitely a sense of I want to win because eventually, like her goal, not eventually, but I think in the first 3 episodes, like she's like, well, we'll talk about it later, but Arata is like, you can be the queen. Like, that's the top female player in all of Japan. Like, and I think once she sort of sets her mind to that, she's like, yeah, I want to get better. But it's always for a love of the sport, love of the game, and then her wanting to do as best as she can.
Yeah, in these early episodes when she starts learning the game, I think like her goal is like if we play this, we could still be together. Like we could
Right.
still maintain these friendships if we keep playing this game forever. And she wants to maintain that so she can keep playing the game and keep having these friendships.
Yeah. But she does love the game.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, when she gets her first card, she's like, oh, like, this is really fun. Like, this is more than just what I thought it was. It's that discovery, which I love.
Yeah. So at this point, it's the next day in class, and we see the idea of these 100 poems that are taught to Japanese children, I guess still at some point in history. Maybe not today. It could be like cursive where no one learns it anymore or
Right.
something like that. But we see that Tai Chi is very good at memorization. He memorized all 100. Chihaya only memorized 15. And also Arata memorized all of them too. So these poems are the basis for this card game, as we said before.
Right. You
Yeah.
basically need to know the verses.
And this is the bit there where where Tai Chi is very proud of his marks. Like that has one of these things that I really like in the show that is like maybe 5% of the time. There's like a cartoony indulgence.
His nose extends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as he gets more prideful. Like they don't often have a cartoony. It feels more real most of the time in it, but that makes it even funnier when a comic book style overreaction to something happens in this rather realistic world.
They definitely do a lot more of it as it goes on. It's
okay.
never like it's all like a fucking wall to wall like cartoons.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's even a funny one later where like Arata calls him a coward. He gets hit in the head with a giant karate card,
Yeah,
stuff like
a
that.
coward on it.
They do a lot of really. That's what I love about it is that they don't shy away from like doing goofy, deformed little like chibi faces or like physical comedy or whatever. Like it's what I love about like something like Hiromu Arakawa's work, like Fullmetal Alchemist or Silver Spoon.
Yeah.
She's really good at balancing like real drama and then just super goofy like little comedic moments in between. But yeah, I do love that sort of cartoony style they throw in every now and then.
And one of Chihaya's main traits as a character is she often puts her foot in her mouth by saying the first thing that she thinks of without thinking of the social implications. So she immediately sort of outs Arata as the paper boy,
Right.
which he's ashamed of because
which
he's...
he thinks is amazing.
Yeah, she's like,
She's
oh,
like,
that's
"That's
so
so cool."
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like when you're a kid, like you want to be a garbage man.
Yeah, you think
no
the
offense
ja-
to garbage men out there. I'm
No,
sure
but
it's
he's
a
like
great
the
job.
janitor. That's such a
Yeah.
cool job. Yeah.
You have him in like ground down by life of what everybody's prejudices are against a
Yeah,
certain job.
right.
So, and yeah, that she also seems like she wouldn't even understand why someone would be made fun of for having less money. Like she doesn't
Sure.
get it.
Yeah.
And she by outing him as having a part-time job, like everybody knows they already were thinking he's too poor,
Yeah.
and shaming him for that. And
Yeah.
she only makes it worse, which that's a good like tragic background for their first meeting too.
Right.
Yeah, so like after school, she meets up with Arata, just to have a moment with him, and that's when Tai Chi shows off he's going to be the bully of this arc in a way. I mean, all the kids are complicit in this bullying.
He's
but
definitely
yeah.
the big bully.
So he pushes down Arata and says like, "Hey, don't talk to that kid. If you do, we're going to shun you starting tomorrow." And she's like, "I don't care.
Right.
Shun me if you want to. I don't care." And then they go to Arata's house, and she's sort of like, "Oh, what a dump!" As soon as she walks in,
she's like,
yeah.
oops, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I also like the Tai Chi. He's so clearly trying to push them apart.
Right.
And
Yeah,
because it
there's
only
some
pushes
jealousy.
them closer together, he has to get worse and worse in his actions.
It's very elementary school boy.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stereotypical elementary school boy of like, oh, why I pull the pigtails of the girl I like.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
idiot. Yeah, it's like so. Yeah,
It's also this trope I think that sometimes can't translate over as well to America, where it's being the best student in class is super celebrated. You're not the nerd. They're
Yeah.
like, well, the best kid marks in class were Tai Chi, but also Arata. And Tai Chi's like, what? I'm the most popular. You can't score better than me.
when I played Persona and you get the high score on the test, like everybody celebrates you. I'm like, this is so foreign to me. I would hide my 100.
I wish I lived
Yeah.
here. Yeah, like and it's so interesting in Japan that they give you the rankings. Like,
Yeah, they're public.
that's crazy
Yeah.
to me. Like, look how bad these people did on the test. Well, that sucks. Like,
yeah, that's a little cruel.
yeah,
I
it's
think.
pretty cruel.
Yeah.
But I guess that it's because I could get into how like Japan, Korea, it's so competitive. Blah blah blah. Blah the culture, work culture, whatever. Anyway, yeah, there is that sort of. Like we can go away from that. That's a whole different topic.
Well, we work ourselves to death in America too, just in different ways.
That's true in just
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah.
But what were we talking?
Oh
about?
yeah, so they're at Arata's apartment now, and that's when I even like that she has to tell him like, you can talk around me. Like I wonder if that's just her assumption or if he really was that guarded of like anything I say gets made fun of in class, so I just have to be silent, or if he's just naturally that withdrawn in general.
What's interesting about the whole? Hey, did you guys ever watch or read A Silent Voice?
No.
No.
You know anything about it?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay. So the whole bullying situation in this, it's like this is how Japanese kids bully each other, is that they have everyone like gang up on like one kid and like, ignore them.
I've heard about the shunning thing.
Yeah, and so in Silent Voice, the whole initial premise is that there's a deaf girl in the class, like a new girl, and she's deaf, and then the main character is like a guy who he just bullies her horribly. Like, it's really, really hard to... I read it first and watched it. Either version. It's very difficult to watch because he's so cruel. And, like, they get, like, the whole class, like, basically gets in on it. And she, like, leaves the school. And the whole story is that he, like... I think he, like, wants to kill himself at the beginning. It's a very rough... It's, like, it's a lot. But he like... he like runs into her again, and he's like, I want to make up for all the horrible shit I did, like all the bullying I did to you. Like, I want to, make up for it, and I want to understand, deaf culture and that kind of thing. And it's this sort of him getting to know her getting to know him, like, and him sort of trying to redeem himself. But like the bullying in that is like really, really hardcore, like really hard to stomach. This is like a not as extreme version, but it could have gotten to that point if this were a different series or if things had gone differently.
I was happy that was not the focus of the series.
Right.
We only see her bullied briefly in the show.
Yeah.
But it's at this apartment that we see Arata come to life, where this is where we learn about the card game, and he is so focused upon playing it. He just like puts the cards out, starts playing the tape, and just like does all of his stuff. And you said when you saw it in public, cards were flying?
Pretty much, yeah. Cards were just like scattering everywhere here and there. Yeah.
When I saw like a tournament on YouTube, it was much gentler than the like open palm swatting of cards in this anime.
I think for this festival, they were definitely like playing it up a bit.
Okay.
People are watching. Let's make it look
It's
cool.
Like, you've seen Chihayafuru, you know what you want.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't think they assume people in the audience had watched Chihayafuru.
It feels like the most representation it's gotten ever in media. I would assume maybe they would know. I don't know.
I think this was like a festival where it was just like moms and dads were there. Even anime fans, like most anime fans don't even know Chihayafuru, unfortunately. That's why I'm on this podcast.
Yes, we're here.
I'm gonna make this as popular as My Hero Academia.
This is Uta Kurata propaganda.
Exactly.
And then speaking of cartoony moments, there's even good like limited animation of him just like rushing around like, ooh, put it over here, put it over there. I'm like, yeah. And his excitement at pulling out the cassettes too, and she's like, well, there's nobody here to read this stuff. He's like, no, I got it.
It's so endearing.
Yeah.
It's so endearing and so relatable. Like, I get set from a board game perspective. I'm like, oh, you like board games? Here, let's play this one.
But he's flinging the cards so hard they're just embedding into the walls, which I don't know if it speaks more to the cheapness of the place he's living or
or his skill.
Yeah, I was reading about those cards. The stock is super, super thick because they have to be durable.
Right.
So they're like the cards that Gambit throws, I think. The same kind.
You could take out an eye with one of those cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They start playing the game and he just like flings him to the side. He's got it instantly, and their whole match against each other too. It also really reminds me of sports anime that I've seen where it's like the rookie against the best guy, and then the rookie gets one slam dunk on the guy, and they're like, whoa, he's got potential.
And she has that moment where she hears the sound before he does.
That's
like, for him, he's like, whoa. Like, that's like, you guys haven't seen Haikyuu, but in Haikyuu, the main character is like super short. So he's like, I could never be a volleyball player, but I really want to be a volleyball player. But turns out he's extremely fast and amazing at jumping. And that turns out to be his big, and initially, like, his big, like, oh shit moment where like he does a crazy jump like out of nowhere and then bam, like and that's Chihaya's thing in this is like she has unusually good hearing.
Yeah, and she doesn't need the context of what the meaning of the poem is. It's all based on the sound. So she hears Chihayafuru, which is the name of the anime, but her name is Chihaya, so that's why she goes for the card. She's like, oh, the next line is Chihaya, and she goes for the card. So that I don't think she beats him, but they go for that at the exact same time, right?
Right. I think she gets I forget.
She gets one on him.
I think she gets that one card. Yeah.
Which that happens like several times in this trio of episodes, and I just like her over exuberance of like, I got a card, and then after when the game's all over, she's like, I only got one card.
I can't believe I got only one card.
Yeah. And I think he recognizes like, oh, you have a strategy. We could develop this.
Sure.
And he explains like, people don't play this in Tokyo, but where I'm from, this is a game we play. And I don't think it's established that his grandfather is a Karuta master, basically, in the 80s.
No,
I think that comes up later.
Yeah, it's the doctor in episode 3, I think, is the first time it.
Yeah, he's like,
directly
oh, your
mentioned.
name is Wataya? Like, oh, you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's his goal in life because I like his he's just very rational about it. It's like, if I become the best in Japan, therefore I am the best in the world.
No one is going to be
Yeah.
better than me. Which
So-
is, I love that. Like, everyone's like, I want to be the best volleyball player in the world. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not going to be.
The world's pretty big, and lots of
the
people play
world is huge.
volleyball. Yeah.
But Karuta? Oh, yeah. If you're the king, who's going to beat you in Karuta?
For Yuri on Ice, it has to be all about. They have to go everywhere in the world to find out who's the best. But
Right.
this can all be realistically done by a teenager who lives
Yeah.
in Japan.
Yeah.
And-
Such a cool goal.
Yeah, and Chihaya, again, she is super selfless, and like this episode ends with her being excited to learn about him and what his passion is. She's so excited about it, and like the rain clears and she runs home, and it's a very
Now,
nice moment.
That's a classic end of first episode moment of like, I have my own dream now. Like
Yeah.
just the whole thing's. I also really like the cute reaction the mom has to seeing Harada
girlfriend
has
Chan.
yeah. Like first he's like, oh, you've got a friend, because she has a tomboyish look too, which I really like. Kid Chihaya design.
yeah.
And then when she realizes in a second, like, wait, oh, it's a girl. Do you want tea? Like,
We got some potatoes for you. Yeah.
oh yeah, yams. Yeah.
Yeah.
It also like extends to like, this is a shoujo. This is a josei genre series, but
Sure.
I can also recognize things that are very prevalent in other genres, like the romantic dream. Like, my dream is this. It's like a thing in One Piece where his dream is to become the master of Japan, and he explains to her, it's like, your dream should not be for someone else to achieve their dream. You need your own dream.
Right.
So I like how like he was a very quiet and shy kid, but he has a real burning passion for this one
Intensity.
thing. Yeah.
Like there's a shot I think where I think it's the first episode where he's just like staring at the cards like with such intensity, and she's like, whoa. She's like, what the hell? Like his energy just suddenly changes as soon as he plays the game. I love that.
Yeah, his focus is like, you can see how his love, just seeing his love of it inspires her too.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's a very compelling passion he has for it. And that like well, also like I believe Chihayafuru like means like passionate stuff.
It means
I-
impassionate, actually. So
it's
the
the
opposite.
opposite,
So I was
yeah.
like, why is it called that? But I guess it's like because Chihaya and everyone they're all very passionate. But maybe there could be like a third meaning to it.
I'm not an expert on the meaning.
So apparently we have the real meaning.
Yeah.
The wiki failed me.
yeah, no, is that what it's on the wiki?
It's on some wiki. I was like, just the Japanese translation wiki or
All
something
right, I
like
pulled
that.
this up from, looks like this is 100poets.wordpress.com, but this is what I remember from the show as well. The poem is translated as, according to this, unheard of even in the legendary age of the awesome gods. Tatsuta River in scarlet and the water flowing under it. That's why red is such a big. It's like,
Yeah.
Scarlet is like you see the red leaf, but like later in the show, like she sees that card as like red.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the Chihayafuru, it means either something like 1,000 swift swords, or like it means basically swift in fury, just like
okay.
swift, furious, like.
Which when she saves him later in episode 2, like that is, she just slams in really fast.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like followed by the autumnal leaves. Like, it's like this bright red giant leaf.
Yeah,
Which, yeah.
it's such a good title, and it's, I think she like saw Chihayafuru and is like, Chihaya, that's the name of my character, and nailed it. Like it's such a good theming for the whole series.
It is, yeah. So we're on episode 2, and we begin with the seeing a bit of the bullying that's happening, where everyone is shunning Chihaya, and she's getting pretty mad about it. But basically, she sets up Arata as like, he can kick anyone's ass, he can kick Taichi's ass
Yeah.
in
Karuta.
Karuta.
Yeah.
And this is what sets up the first real game between characters in the show. I mean, we saw a bit of it in her learning how to play, but we're going to see a tournament happen later in this episode.
Yeah, I love that moment too. Like first you see like Taichi is a really scary like power. Like he said he was going to get everybody to ignore them, and he did.
Right.
Like he's like a classroom demagogue. Like he can pull it off. And then,
Yeah.
But Chihaya, like she doesn't act annoyed by that anyway. She's like, oh, my desk is over here. Pick up, put it down, and then she knows Arata is not going to do this himself, so she, not like a scheming way, but she did go like, no, you know what, he could kick your ass.
Yeah,
at
it's not,
this
she's just
game.
like, yeah, this guy can kick your ass. Yeah.
And for as shy as he is, he's even emboldened by like sort of stammering out like, "I won't let you win," or "I won't let you take a
one
card."
card.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So those are the stakes in this contest. So if Taichi beats Arata, then no one will talk to Arata until he graduates, basically, which
Yeah.
is pretty high stakes for this first game in the second episode of Chihayafuru.
Right, and they're like fucking kids, dude.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
The teachers, they got to get more involved in this class. Like a teacher seems kind of out of it at parts.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in a silent voice too. If anything, the teacher in that is actually really shitty because he's just like, whatever, I don't care. If anything, he's like, this deaf girl is such a burden. Like I gotta like do ASL. It's so bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's something that I think happens in some Japanese schools. Unfortunately, is just that whole shunning thing. It's sad. Like I like you said, I'm glad it's not like the focus. But,
This is the extent of it, really.
Yeah.
Because now, like, the tournament starts immediately
Right.
after this scene. And what I like about this is that it sort of let me know the place of Uta Karata in the world, in Japan, too, because the parents are talking about, like, wait, what is this game? And a woman explains it. She's like, I read it in this printout. This is how you play the game. So it's like, it's telling the audience how the game is played, but also it's establishing that, like, no one really plays it that much,
and
right?
it explains it organically. Like something that, I get that if you're telling a story and you have new rules to your world, you have to explain the rules. But some stuff does it so, like, clumsily.
There's no narrator that comes down.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, by the way, did you know all this information that you should already know? And they're like, yeah, I know. It's like,
Yeah.
But in this show, because people don't know the nitty gritty of Karata. Yeah, like you said, here's a printout. Oh, I read it on a printout.
Yeah.
Apparently, you read the poem out, one of the poems out loud, and then it explains stuff. Because unless you're into Karata, you don't know this shit.
Yeah, it really helped me. It's like, oh, this is not like no one is out on the, like, you don't see karate games happening up and down the street. I mean,
Right.
I did not in Tokyo when I was there, for sure.
Right.
Well, and when they set up the intro poem too, that they're like, no, you listen to this one poem and then the game starts. Like even by the third, and I bet they do way more with it as it goes, but even in the third episode, hearing the first poem that you don't play during the intro poem, there was so much tension later of like, when this poem ends, the fight begins.
Yes.
I love that.
There's stuff later on where there's something called a dead poem where like it's not in play. So like it's like if you're trying to play a game where everyone has to touch the thing first and there's like a false start or whatever. Like, there's this thing where like they read a poem and everyone's like, it's not one of the poems we have to touch. And then there's a character. Also, I'm just giving you little tidbits of what. I'm trying to entice you to watch.
I want to see
more.
how they mix it up. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a character she meets who her goal is to become a reader. Like she's like, I want to. That's my goal. My dream is to be an official licensed or whatever reader for games. Which is interesting.
And you heard in this clip at the beginning of the show, but they're sort of chanted, and these are they're called waka poems, which just implies the meter, which is sort of like 5, 5, 7, 5. I don't know. It's sort of like haiku, where it's an alternating 5s and 7 syllables, in a way. But we see a bit. So we see Taichi winning. Taichi clearly is very good at this game. And Arata amazing everybody. They're just knocking a card across the room.
Yeah.
So he's very good at just the physicality of the game, too.
When he knocks the card across the room, I like everybody acts both impressed, but also like, that's a little intense. This gets kind of weird.
Yeah, and the pressure is rising for Taichi as he hears people saying, ooh, this Arata guy is pretty good.
Is he gonna be okay?
Yeah.
You can see on the scoreboard, he had 25-0 in his two
0 on
matches.
both matches.
Yeah, and so this bit with Taichi here, I do have an issue I have in general with manga these days is that I don't like a bully redemption arc. I grew up bullied. I don't like bullies, and so I get the idea. I totally understand it from a narrative perspective, but I still find it hard to buy into like this bully learned his lesson or this bully got better. Like for example, in My Hero, I know Bakugo's going on a redemption arc. I feel it happening.
Bakugo,
yeah, like fuck him. He told Deku to kill himself.
Yeah.
Like,
in the first episode.
I am 100% with you on that. One thing about Taichi and listen, like I'm totally on, like not on board, but I understand it. Like I do not like a clumsy bully redemption story. And actually, my wife hates Tai Chi.
Okay.
I actually really like Tai Chi because I think Tai Chi is a very interesting character, especially as a high schooler. You don't get to see any of that in these first three.
I'm seeing a lot of layers to him here. I can see him. He's definitely more interesting than Bakugo is to me. That's for sure.
Bakugo
Yeah.
fucking sucks. But anyway, so one thing I think that's interesting about Tai Chi is that his mom is like something that's kind of like a factor in his childhood that like pushes him to like, I got to be the best. Because there's a moment where she's like, oh, you didn't win? Like, what was even the point of this? Like, I'm not going to let you play anymore. Like, she's clearly a negative. It's like the the parent who pushes you. You have to be the best at everything. And if you aren't, then what's the point? And I guess I don't want to spoil anything, but Tai Chi is an interesting character because later on, like, he's used to being like the best at everything, at like grades and sports or whatever. He's not the best at karate. He's good, but he's not Arata level. And so Tai Chi's arc is kind of like him embracing something he's not the best at, but still in loving it and trying to get better at it. Despite, because he's grown up being like, my mom expects me to be the best of everything, and if not, then I'm a disappointment.
It helps to have that outside force as what is pushing him to doing these bad acts.
Right. It doesn't totally justify it because he's just a shithead too. Like But I think
it's only for like 2 episodes. I'm getting the feel though. Yeah.
right. Like he definitely, even by 3, like you get to see like a human, or end of 2 and in episode 3, you get this human side of him. If you talk to my wife, she'd be like, "No, fuck him. Like, I don't care. He's a dick." But I think he's a much more interesting character because of it. And I'd be curious to see what you would think of a silent voice because, like, the main character is a horrible bully. Like, when I read the first manga volume, I was like disgusted. I was like, "How can I read this more? Like, I hate this character so much." And by the end of it, I was fully turned around.
And I'm interested in this challenge.
I guess we didn't talk about what Tai Chi actually did.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, is Arata dead? No. Tai Chi you think he's trying to make peace, but he gives him a drink. Of course, it's shaken up. It explodes in his face. And another kind of cartoony flourish in the show.
Right.
But while he's like cleaning up Arata, Tai Chi steals his glasses, and his vision is very, very bad.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I mean, not just stealing a person's glasses, like that already is
That's a
bad.
shitty thing
a
to do.
horrible thing to do. But he's also like a poor kid who he doesn't have it's kind of subtle, but like Arata doesn't have a handkerchief. That seems like a mark that he doesn't have enough money to have a handkerchief. Like, so losing his glasses, like, can his parents afford to buy him new glasses? Like,
I never even thought of that.
I didn't really think about that either.
Yeah. And I also, though, like, why I think I could like Tai Chi more than Bakugo too is not to make this all about Bakugo, but
You got to drop that Bakugo baggage. Bakugo baggage.
Yeah.
There.
but a reason I could like Tai Chi more is you are at least a little inside with him that he's doing all the normal tactics he'd do that, like, well, by getting all this coke in his face, this should humiliate him to the girl that I like, and she won't like him anymore. And instead, she goes with him to the bathroom. Is like, here, do you need my sleeve? Just wipe out my sleeve.
Yeah, she's looking at places on her body where he can wipe his face off.
And she doesn't understand how that could make anybody jealous. Like, she's just trying to be a good friend.
Right.
But yeah, then Tai Chi gets more and more jealous. Yeah.
I'm curious to see what you think of Tai Chi because if you watch more, it's a lot of him just maturing.
Okay.
Like I mean, I think when he comes to meets Chihaya at the beginning, like, he's at a pretty good level, but there's definitely, he has a lot of room to grow, and I think he grows a lot throughout the series. But yeah, anyway, I'd be curious. He's not a bully anymore. Anyway, and when he comes to high school, like, he's grown out of that phase, and I think even by episode 3, like, he's basically out of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
This episode, I mean, he has the dramatic end of this episode 2 kind of cures him of his bulliness.
Yeah.
At least they don't make you spend too much time with him as a bully.
Yeah. But yeah, so Arata enters the tournament without his glasses. So we find out not only has he memorized all 100 poems, he's memorized where every card is placed. So that also tells the audience that, like, there's an established placement of the cards. They're not random, I guess.
Oh no, you can choose.
Oh, you can choose.
But
So-
what he did was, when they looked at set the cards down, and like, they usually have like 15 minutes to memorize.
Yeah.
He memorized every card spot.
But for some reason, the card positions were moved. So was that implied that Tai
That was
Chi?
cheating.
Tai Chi cheated.
Tai
Okay.
Chi-
Now, during the game, you can, if you officially say, I'm moving these cards.
Yeah.
But Taichi was just like, I'm a little shit, and he switched 2 cards and fucked with Arata.
Yeah.
Again, I blame the teacher. Like, one, she let the match happen without his glasses.
Right.
And 2, she should be watching because she does tell.
You picked the wrong card.
Yeah, she's watching enough to be a ref on it to be like, hey, you picked the wrong card. But then she doesn't see that Taichi. This just feels like boys will be boys.
Well,
She's letting him get away with stuff.
I mean, Chihaya sort of airbuds her way into this contest where there's
I love
nothing in the
that.
rule book that says she can't replace him, and that's what she does. And she says, I'm doing this for Arata. Then she realizes, no, I'll do this for myself. I'll do this to beat Taichi. So she realizes, like, I have to stop living other people's dreams and start living out my own.
And try to focus on my own journey. And you get that red leaf there, too. Like, I think it's literally in her hair.
it's like they follow her everywhere.
I think she was, like, searching in a bush or something. And, like, I love that, though, that red leaf.
It's great. Yeah, it's a great device. And then they start going into, like, the different strategies. So, like, her thing is, like, she doesn't have anything memorized, but if she swats the cards away in the direction that Taichi is looking, she can still win, which seems crazy to me. Like, wow, that is actually a strategy for this game.
Right. I mean, if you're playing against someone really good, it won't work because they'll grab the card before
They're
you.
too fast, yeah.
And you get penalized if you don't get the right card because you have to pass them one of your cards.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake.
So it's got to be, like, out of the play field was the rule? Like, the card has to be removed from the play field?
As long as the correct card is knocked out of the way, then that's valid. But even then, like, it's not it's like button mashing in a fighting game. Like, sure, that'll work against the average person, but if you're playing against someone who's any good, they will just block you and destroy you.
No, her strategy is so. I like too that people are laughing at her just because she's so like reckless, but she doesn't care. And another of those great cartoony moments when she realizes like that isn't against the rules. She gets like those, serial killer sparkles in her eye, like, I got you. I love that.
And then she's eventually down to 2 cards that she doesn't recognize, but I believe this is when she gets the Chihayafuru card. So once again, that strategy works. It's like we're learning her device will soon be, again, not thinking of definition of the poems or what they're saying, but actually just thinking of the sounds and going based on the sounds alone,
least
right?
to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the very beginning here.
When the pressure in this scene too, it really reminds me of like childhood spelling bees. Like, except in spelling bees, you can take forever. Like the pace is very different from the pace.
Pretty
of this.
excruciating to watch.
Still very tense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And even worse tension put on a child. To, like,
Sure. Yeah.
But it's a really, I like how they keep graduating the importance of matches in these 3 episodes too. Like her first ever match is just closed door room with a friend.
Sure.
And then her second match is, 6th grade tournament against just a bunch of other kids, but she wins it then. And then the next episode is an actual tournament for kids in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So she does win this, and she's basically crowned the queen of Karata by Arata because I guess that is the name, what you can call the top female player
She's
in
not
Japan.
crowned as it, but she's like, you could be the
Oh,
queen. Like,
she's promised that. Like, this could be your future.
this is the goal you should shoot for. You could be the queen. Yeah. Which is a very important moment in the show. It's like that that early apartment scene and him telling her you can be the queen is like, they always go back to this. It's like the defining moments of Chihaya's life, essentially.
Yeah, and then we see like some unsupportive parenting where Taichi's mom is like, you lost to a girl. You didn't just lose, you lost to a girl.
Right. What will your father think of this?
Yeah, and like only enter things you can win from now on. And then Chihaya wants to talk about her win, but her mom's like, oh, there's an agent here from a modeling agency, and we're talking about this now. And what I like about this scene is that she's not like crestfallen. She's like, no, let's talk about my sister. I like my sister in her dream. Yeah.
I think she's a little like, but she's not broken up about it. But what I love about those scenes as well is that it emphasizes just how unimportant, quote unquote, karate is to most people.
Yeah.
Like, why do you care about? Who cares about that little karate game championship? Who cares? Like, your sister's got a modeling contract.
I think in the next episode she's like, that's stupid and boring, and I don't care.
No, it's in this one on the phone.
Oh, this
when the
one.
sister
Oh, yeah,
comes
it
on,
happens
she's
in
like,
the scene.
So boring.
She's like, it's boring and lame.
Yeah.
Like, that's the subtitle. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, who cares? Like, yeah, in the next episode, the sister's like, what the fuck is she wasting her time with?
Yeah.
She's like, Chia should only care about me.
But I like that Chihaya is like, she's marginalized, but she doesn't take it too hard. She's like, oh, but I got this. She's like, yeah, that's nice. Come home. She's like, okay, yeah, I'll come home. Like,
she's used to just being neglected, and
I guess
the focus
so.
being away from her. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing this again. Okay, I know what this mode is.
the forgotten little sister
Yeah.
seems to be her situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the big moment at the end is when Taichi like gives the glasses back. And
Yeah.
at first is like, oh, I found these in the hall, but then the big moment is he's like, no, I stole them. He confesses. He doesn't
Yeah.
need to, even though Aruta knows he stole them. Like Taichi does fess up, and then he does allow a moment of weakness. Like he cries and
Yeah.
is like, please don't tell Chihaya. And Aruta is like, I love that Aruta at first is like, you're a coward.
Yeah, I like that.
He
I
doesn't
like that.
forgive him, but he's
Yeah.
like, but I understand because I like Chihaya too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Chihaya, again, so innocent, she's like, when Arata suggested somebody stole it, she's like, no one would do that. Had to be a bird.
Yeah,
A bird
Taichi's
Crow
not
did it.
that bad.
Yeah. It's always a crow. But yeah, I like also we see that just like how driven Arata is that they hear this banging noise in the school and they're like, what is that? They go to investigate. That's when they find him. He's playing it without the cards.
Right.
Like he doesn't even need the cards to be there because he's memorized so much about this game.
Right. And it's a cool moment because Chihaya hears it first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
with-
true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Chihaya hears and Taichi's like, what? And then they go upstairs like, oh yeah, there is a banging sound. You're a freak. Like, how do you hear so well? I love that. A lot of little moments of, not foreshadowing, but little like building up. Yeah, she is really good at hearing. Oh yeah, like he is intense. Like yeah.
This 3-episode arc is just very well plotted. Like they don't
Yes.
linger on anything for too long. I'm glad. Like the bullying was like 5 minutes of the show,
Right.
Or else it could have been a little too intense. But we're on episode 3 now, and this is when they find the Karata Society,
Sure.
which is a bunch of sort of weirdo adults who are playing this forgotten game,
Yeah.
and the sensei there, who's actually a real doctor, like a medical doctor, he's just overjoyed to see like there are children here and they care about
Our
this
sport
thing.
will not die. Yeah.
Yes.
I love. I mean, one of my favorite things in so much anime is manly tears of passion.
Yes.
And he just lets them flow the second he sees them. Like, oh, children, the next generation will play this game.
And I think
Yeah.
Chihaya's first reaction is, "Oh, adults play this,
Yeah.
and they're serious about it." Wow, yeah.
Yeah, like because she accidentally opens the door in the middle of the reading or whatever, and they all just like glare at her, and she's like, "Oh shit!" Like it's an intense room to walk into.
Yeah, it's really cute too because she has just like a childish reading of like konnichiwa, like she just
Yeah.
jumps in and then everybody just glares at her and Arata's like, oh, really sorry, and just shoves her
I
aside.
was like, "You're not supposed to do that."
But like any nerd with a dying hobby, they're very much about gatekeeping. And this guy named Hero is just like, "You're not good. We're not gonna let kids in
He
here."
is such a perfectly designed gatekeeping
I
shit.
love that
like,
character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like a great design, like Glass Joe, kind of your first enemy type guy.
Yeah.
And this is when they decide to play a team game. So they actually explain this to the audience, where each side gets 50 cards. You have 15 minutes to memorize both your side and your opponent's side, and you're also allowed to go wherever you want in those 15 minutes. So they're establishing more of the rule set of this variant of the game. So this is when we learn that Chihaya will go based on the cards with unique beginning sounds, because she's like, how can I remember 100 poems? He's like, no, think about the sounds.
Yeah.
And I believe Taichi will go for cards with identical phrases.
Long poem, like long syllables. 'cause
Yeah.
he's good at. He memorized the poems, and yeah, like you were saying, ones that are like long. Yeah, basically what you were saying.
But that means because there are lots of cards that begin with the same phrases, you could choose the wrong one. So
Right.
it sets up that little wrinkle in the
yeah,
strategy.
basically, Aruta's like, you know the poems well enough where I can trust you with the tricky shit.
So they're called, like, I believe Taichi's cards are called long shot cards.
Yeah. And then Aruta's like, I'll just cover all the bases, and then he ends up just doing like taking their cards anyway,
Yeah.
which I think is so funny.
It was sort of like,
Yeah.
let me. Like,
I like that you think it's them versus Retro, but
Yeah.
instead it's them versus him. Of like, can you get any of the cards before I do when we beat this guy?
Yeah, and we see Dr. Harada, who is the master of this karate dojo, like witnessing that Chihaya gets it like before the first syllable is even fully read, she understands it. So it's more about that she has like really keen perception and great hearing.
right.
Yeah.
She beats an entire room of adults who've been playing it forever in reaction time. And
Yeah.
Aruta notices it too, which is great.
Yeah, I like. It's so the natural skill that needs to be shaped, but they're like she has the potential to be the greatest ever,
Yeah.
just because of her untapped skill there.
What I love about this trope is that in other anime, it's a little like, oh, really? Like this kid just happens to be the best jumper, and he wants to be like a volleyball player. But with this quirk, that's not useful or noticeable in most contexts.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, just having really good hearing is like, okay, that's cool. Who cares? But then it's like, it happens to be like in this sport, she has a great talent, a great treasured skill.
The best skill to
natural
have.
Yeah.
Well, when it's like a physical thing you can do, probably you would figure like, well, I'm good at running. You should try basketball, or somebody would say that to you or whatever. But if you told like, oh, I'm pretty good at hearing stuff, no one would tell you like that will go great with this card game.
You can edit
gotta try that.
podcasts.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
The ultimate. I'm going to be the #1 podcast editor in the world.
And if so, please send your resume to us. So basically, there's going to be a team game coming up, and even though Arata carried both of them in the previous game, 2 out of 3 of them have to win. So the pressure is on for them to reach a higher level of play.
Right.
Oh, and I like the character designs on the kid versions of them because they're not in school uniforms before middle school. They get to change up their outfits, and I really like the designs on them. Look so cool. My favorite is Tai Chi's Batman
shirt.
not Batman shirt.
Quote-unquote Batman shirt. Yeah.
His boomerang shirt, a black boomerang on a yellow oval.
I forget. What shirt does Chihaya wear? Does she wear a Daddy Bear shirt yet?
Oh, you know,
don't
there's
think
that.
so.
That's a brand within the show, Daddy Bear, because I saw an ad at the
In the station,
train
right?
station. Yeah.
It's funny because in the show, it's like a tacky brand, but she like loves it. Like she's like, this is the best. Like she loves like dumb looking things like that. I forget if she wears one of that, but yeah, it's cute seeing them in like outside of school clothes. Like,
Oh yeah, she does have Daddy Bear mittens. Like
yeah,
in the
yeah. It's
episode.
something that
Yeah.
Yeah,
when
the
I was
mittens,
watching,
I remember that, yeah.
when I was rewatching, I was like, oh, there's a Daddy Bear like ad behind them. Oh, that's so clever, like a little world building.
But
Yeah.
don't search for that on Google. You want to find
Yeah,
something else.
Google
Put,
image search Daddy Bear.
Put
yeah.
Chihayafuru before it. Or maybe not, I don't know.
Depending on your mood. Yeah.
So we get some nice little montagey scenes where one of them
It's a
is
training montage.
Yeah, they get
Yeah.
a training montage. So
Classic, yeah.
they're sort of having a snowball fight while reciting the verses to each other. And this is when we get the Arata telling Chihaya, like, don't call me Wataya, call me Arata. It's my first name. So, yeah.
So, and you get one of those before to an episode 2 where they're calling out, and Taichi's like, Chihaya, and Arata at first is like, Ayase, and then like he like stops, and then he goes, Chihaya, like he makes the decision to call her Chihaya too.
There's like a zoom in on his mouth going, Chihaya?
Yeah.
Like he has to break through the awkwardness of
It's
it.
such a good moment. And then that moment in 3, I like when I watched it, I was like, oh, yes. Incredible moment. Like, because he's like, call me Arata. Like, it's so, he's usually like kind of like, you know, reluctant or shy or whatever. But he's just like, he's going to go for it. He's like, let's go for that next level of friendship.
And Tai Chi, like the third wheel he is, he's like, hey, I'm calling you
I'm calling you
Arata
Arata too,
now.
bitch. Yeah.
And at this point, you find out that it was established in the first episode that Tai Chi didn't go to this school, but it's here we find out he was accepted to this middle school that is 90 minutes away. And he's like, well, we're not going to do this forever. I can't possibly do this forever. I'll be attending the school way far away, and this karate stuff has to end at some point.
Yeah.
And Chihaya is upset. Super upset
Sure.
by this because this is like her new passion, and she wants to be involved with this with all of her friends. But it's quickly falling apart as soon as it begins.
Right.
Yeah, and I like her training bit and that's when her sister is like, what is she doing? This is at least the mom is supportive, which you need. Like, that's a thing too in these shows. If you don't have parental support of your dream, then you kind of are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So
There's a moment I won't spoil with the parents, though, that it's so heartwarming. Like it's nice seeing them sort of care about her passion, even like a little bit, or not a little bit, but as it goes on. I wanted to also say, like, with Taichi going to a different school, also Arata, his uncle or his grandfather gets sick. He has a stroke, and so he's gonna have to leave after elementary school.
So at the same time, they're both saying this ends after we graduate.
Right,
yeah.
right.
yeah, it's that stuff really got me too. It made me remember, like, I remember when I moved in 4th grade, and I said, "Oh, I'll never forget you, friends." And now I don't remember. Those guys.
Yeah.
It is a weird, like, kind of power fantasy about childhood where it's like, yes, the friends I have will be my friends forever. And this
Right.
show is like into that sort of fantasy where it's like, yeah, your friends will never leave you. It's all about keeping that fantasy alive.
Yeah, I had the exact same feeling when I moved in like 6th grade or 7th grade. It's like, yeah, we'll keep in touch. We didn't. I mean, I think I'm Facebook friends with some of them.
Yeah.
But you know, it's
Well,
like you're going to drift apart.
When I moved, social media wasn't as what it is now.
Right.
So I think
It wasn't for me
today-
either, but I
yeah.
like caught. I was like, oh, I'll send out some.
Yeah.
You know, I'll reconnect with this person.
It was really cute. So they go back to the society, and Dr. Harada is like, where is Chihaya? And they both want to take the blame. They're fighting over whose fault it is. They're not blaming each other.
She
It's like,
said about me.
yeah, it's like, she said about me. And
there's
Taichi's like, I knew her longer. Yeah.
And there's such a great cut too while they're fighting of her then tearing
Yeah.
the middle of the screen, but
tearing
it's
them
her
apart.
really tearing apart her posters
Yeah.
for the hiragana.
Even
Yeah.
though it's depicting fairly mundane stuff, this show does nice visual
Sure.
flourishes here and there, and
Yeah.
it's very well. I love the coloring. I love the music. We haven't talked about is very, very good, very beautiful.
So good.
I was actually listening to the soundtrack on YouTube while I was taking notes today, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
good. Look it up.
I fucking love the soundtrack. It's so it makes the emotional moments so much more impactful. Just how beautiful that music is.
And just in this episode, the relationship between Chihaya and the doctor is so like heartwarming.
Yeah.
Like he's just so supportive. At first, you think he's just happy, like not to use them, but he just sees them as a resource. But as he gets to know them so quickly, he's like, especially when she is just this cute little kid going like, I just don't know all the poems yet. He's like, here, have some free cards.
Yeah.
It's like making 100 friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that line. Yeah. And then when she's going to quit, she very politely, though, returns the cards to him. Like that also shows what a good person she is.
Yeah,
She's like,
I don't need these anymore.
yeah, it would be wrong to keep these free cards you gave me if I'm not going to play. So here you go, sir.
And that's where she learns about Arata's grandfather and like who exactly he is.
Right. Yeah. He was like you said, a master in the 80s.
Yeah, they call it-
renowned Majin.
They called him like Eternal Master in the subtitles.
Yeah,
Like
which
that-
is basically like a chess grandmaster.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that also shows you like the advantage Arata has on everybody else, that he was just raised. He was a master. I mean, he also is just very skilled at it, but he has been learning
From one of the greats.
from one of the greats from like 5 years before he even met these characters.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if like Chihaya can identify with Arata because he loves Karata, but in a way he's also living out his grandfather's dream or like continuing his dream. And Chihaya is all about like in the beginning at least saying I want this for this person, but he's like I guess Arata is different because he's extending a dream.
I don't think Arta's
Generationally.
extending. I don't think it's because he wants to extend his grandfather's dream. I think it's very like he wants it for himself.
Okay.
Because Arta could have very easily just like, oh, my grandpa does that weird card game. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's
We see how close they were
but they
though
were
in the
super
photos.
Close,
yeah,
right? They were super
yeah.
close, and he loved the game because of that. But Arta, I think, is very focused on like
Interesting.
he almost like he has no it's nothing like I want to surpass my grandpa.
Yeah.
I think for his grandpa's legacy, it's a totally separate thing. It's like I want to be master. Like that's my goal.
Is his grandfather dead in the present of the show? Or is that a
That
spoiler?
sounds like a spoiler.
Okay, yes, I'm sure there's an arc about it or it's an event in the show. But okay, so now we're at the tournament. Let's stop talking about spoilers.
Okay.
I was just thinking the doctor has like nicknames for Tai Chi. And
eyebrows
eyebrows
and
and
glasses?
glasses.
Yeah.
Though I think maybe it's just because I like in the show comic Urusei Yatsura, like Megane is an insult. Like they make fun of him
Like
by
four
calling
eyes?
him glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but I clearly that's not what the doctor means.
The
But
doctor's just like he's got glasses. He's glasses kid.
Hey, 2 feet, get over here. His eyebrows aren't really big enough, I think. Maybe within the
Yeah, I don't actually notice that at all about Tai Chi. But
within the designs of the show, maybe I don't know, but they're not like that pronounced. But
Right.
they're at the tournament. There's a dangerous round boy who shows up.
oh yeah,
I like his shirt. Even his shirt's like I'm fat. I'm
Yeah.
the fat guy. Here's my shirt. It's
Yeah.
like it's like a gas tank that says like all the way to full.
yeah,
And it says like I forget what it says, but it's also like his shirt is insulting him.
Yeah.
But he's leaning into his size. I
Right.
guess.
yeah.
I will say that character does come back.
Okay.
And that character is awesome.
See, this is reminding me of one of my favorite SungWon's sketches. Is the you watching a show with somebody else's first time, and you know the secrets, and just like,
Yeah.
you,
Wait to see this.
Yeah.
That round boy becomes a round man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Chihaya is not there, obviously, but that's when she gets the package from Taichi, and it's the Team Chihayafuru shirt.
Yes.
That is the design, or sorry, the uniform for their team.
Yeah.
Well, Taichi, seemingly he has a lot of money, or he's a well-off family comparatively to Arata, so
Yeah.
he can afford to just print
Custom
up some
printed
t-shirts.
shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, which are just so cute too. They them and all their matching shirts. 'Cause I'm sure the shirts come up a lot as plot points later on.
Shirts, they do come up. They have different shirts. throughout
okay,
it.
okay.
I want one. Like, I know they sell them. I just have not been able to get my hands on one.
That seems like an easy one for T Fury to just copy with no.
But I want an official one.
Yeah.
I want a real ass
$80.
Chihayafuru official shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that she gets a realization of like, yeah, I need to go there. They got me the shirt, but then she's still super late. And when she gets there, she's like, I was stuck by the train for 20
I was
minutes.
gonna be here
Yeah.
earlier.
And we see part of her selflessness where she's like, I was lonely, but then I realized you were probably lonely too.
Yeah.
So she thought maybe she was being a bit selfish
Yeah,
with
that was
running away.
That was a really good scene the doctor has with her, where he's just like, well, I know you're sad you're not going to get to play anymore, but they're pretty sad too. Like she learns some empathy, like that
Yeah.
is, it's tough for kids to learn that sometimes.
Yeah.
Some people never learn.
He's basically
Yeah.
like, well, your friend is moving far away. It'll be hard for him to do this. And also your other friend, his grandfather's dying. So like they have their own problems.
Sure, sure.
In a way. But ultimately they don't win, correct? This
they
this
do not
first tournament.
win.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Taichi is apologizing for not winning his match. And Chihaya, all she just cares about is like she does not want this to end. Even though they lose, she's not crying over the loss. She's crying over the ultimate end
That was
of
the
this
last
group.
time they got to play, essentially,
Yeah.
as a team.
Yeah, and you do see, like you said, Taichi has already changed enough that he's like, "Oh, you're sick. Here, put on my hat. It's cold."
Yeah.
Like that. That was a nice thing. The redemption arc is working on me. Damn it.
There's also a cute moment where like Arta's like, I wanted to give Chihaya the trophy, and Taichi's like, I'm so sorry, I lost. I wanted to do it too. Like, it's so cute.
The tears, the passionate tears flowing after a loss. I just love that.
Yeah.
and so much anime.
Something that in Haikyuu they do a lot too, because it's like if you lose in the tournament, you are done for the season. Especially if you're a senior, and because that means that's your last game ever. It's like they explore that a lot, like the despair of defeat. Wow. It's so good, so good.
And now you're selling me on Haikyuu as well. And
What? Sorry.
now you're selling me on Haikyuu as well.
I'm gonna sell you on 5 different anime by the time.
I
this
want a
is
good
over.
golf anime. Hook me up.
Is there a good golf anime? I don't know off the top of my head.
There's got to be at least one.
There's probably one that's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not translated, but it's so good. Yeah.
I'll watch all of it raw. But
Yeah.
it's graduation day, and so Arata sort of does like Irish goodbye. He packs up alone. And, people are like,
I
"What
wrote
happened
down
to
the
him?"
same thing,
Oh, Irish
too.
goodbye.
Irish goodbye, yeah.
And so Taichi and Chihaya show up at his house to have one last round of possibly one last round of Karata, and Taichi is the reader. And Arata is basically getting Chihaya fired up, saying, "I won't lose." And so Taichi pulls the Chihayafuru card, and they both hit it at the same time. So their skills are her skills are growing.
Yes. Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms
yeah.
of like her level compared to the amazing Arata.
And I like that Arata, he has the line like, I wouldn't show mercy if I was playing against a 5-year-old.
Yeah. I think this is the scene where they both hit it at the same time, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But her hand's on just underneath, like she.
Or I think it's
just
on
beat
her side. I think if it's on your side, I forget the.
That's
exact-
right. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a tie, but she said it's on my side.
So I
and
get the card.
win it.
Yeah, and this is when Arata starts crying, and he's like, "We'll never see each other again." And the final line is like, "As long as you keep playing, we will." And then it's like that sets up the rest of the show because the first episode is like, "What happened to Arata?"
Yeah.
And then we go into their backstory. So I believe episode 4 we will find out, or at least they're on the journey to find out.
You'll have to
Yeah.
watch and find out,
Yeah.
which I hope you guys do. I mean, clearly you enjoy it.
Oh
but,
yeah.
like
Well,
it's so good.
when on that last scene where they swear like that she says, "Oh, we're gonna if we keep playing, we'll meet each other." The posing on it is just so like dramatic. It almost feels like biblical, like that it's a painting of a scene from the Bible. That it's just like, well, and here, like her hand is here, and he's sitting back there, and
And I believe we get the red leaf sort
Yeah,
of.
I think we do at the
too.
very
Yeah.
end. Yeah.
yeah. And also, I had to laugh that I felt like them making Taichi the reader was like kind of emasculating to him a little bit.
Yeah.
We get to
too.
play. You can be the
Yeah.
reader.
Even
Read
though they use the device of her getting the Chihayafuru card 3 times,
Mm.
it doesn't feel cheap, and it kind of should, but it doesn't. It's more meaningful like thematically and emotionally than it is in the logic of how often this card would be pulled or how often this phrase would be read, right?
I think the card comes up pretty often.
Okay.
Just regularly.
It's like every time she draws it, it's a huge moment in the show.
It's interesting because, whenever it comes up, like, everyone's like, oh, she's going to get that card. And sometimes it's like, what happens if she doesn't get that card?
So now they're setting up as a device she always does, but there will be a challenge in the future. I see.
It's like this is the Chihaya card. That one poem gets so much significance, and they do play with it a lot as the series goes on of like how that's a good thing and a bad thing.
I was just thinking statistically, like it's 100 cards, and it seems like it ends at 25, or like at least errata 1 at 25 and 0. So that's like a 1 out of 4 chance it will be said in a game like that.
Don't they use 50 cards in one game?
Oh yeah, okay. So
So it's like
yeah.
half and half.
Okay.
Yeah. Or yeah.
I'm learning. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
No, I am gonna stick with this show.
Oh,
I'm gonna
please
watch
do.
it more.
Please
I mean, I was I trusted you and I watched your video about you trying to sell to people, but still I was like, really? Could this be
I was
good?
like, this is gonna be the worst episode of this podcast ever.
But
we gotta
then,
talk about this boring shit.
I got into it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to keep watching it. It's, again, like, you don't need the cultural knowledge and you don't need the knowledge of how the game is played. You are taught it, but also, like I said earlier, you're not meant to play alongside the characters. It's more fun to see them do something and then have it explained to you, like, here's what happened.
Right.
And that's the most fun part of this. Like, again, like with Kaiji, like, how could they draw this out? Then you find out all these new wrinkles they add. Like, even in episode 3, like, here's a new wrinkle to
Right.
complicate the situation. This fairly simple game.
I will say when they start getting into like full games, they do explain like a bit more like what the character is thinking. Like the character, there's a lot of internal monologue of like these two are like the same syllable, and I gotta decide are they gonna go for this one or that. They do a lot more of that, more focus on mechanics, but it's never like to the point where it's uninteresting or whatever. Like they do a really good job of pacing it out.
Yeah, after hearing the rules, I was like, well, this seems like a little too simple. But then you realize like how many decisions are in that one like swatting of a card. How much goes into that?
Let me just say, there's so much they do with it. There's how do you place the cards in the beginning? Like, how do people strategize that? Like, how do you break someone's morale? Like, how do you, like, there's a lot, like any good sports anime, they really dive into deeper, almost metagamey stuff, and like, oh, it's so rich, it's so good. It almost makes me want to learn how to play karate. It's so, yeah.
I think
so
they're
satisfying.
like the hurdles are learning Japanese and then learning the poems, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then being able to read them backwards or upside down because you're looking at
Right.
your friend. Like
Yeah.
that. I was just thinking of that challenge alone. Like for an English, if this was a similar game but with English words, I would just think of like I'm reading this backwards. Like this is hard enough.
Yeah,
to
reading
do.
upside down is tough.
Yeah.
What makes this show so good, in case you guys, listeners, didn't realize I enjoy this show, is that the boring sounding part, the karate part, is actually really engaging and interesting. Like, it's not like, oh, I got to get through this stuff to get to the cool character moments. Like, it's fun to watch.
It is,
and
yeah.
it's well directed and well explained, and you get into the game itself. It's like me with volleyball. Like, after watching Haikyuu, like I watched when I was in Japan, I watched a Japanese women's volleyball game, and I was really into it. I was like, because I understand more of like how to play and what's going on. You get more invested in karate and like actually interested in the mechanics of it. But then the base of the heart of it is the characters.
Yeah.
For me, it's the characters are so like wonderful and interesting, and you guys have only met like the main three. There's so many more cool characters. It's just this huge world, not huge, but this world of like, these are all karate players. They all know each other. They have histories with each other. Like, it's this motley crew of just, they're like misfits in terms of like Japanese like interests, like what's popular, but they all love this sport and they all approach it in such different ways and enthusiasms and things like that.
Any final
Yeah.
thoughts, Henry?
No, I mean I'm really engaged with it. I feel with these types of things, if I can really get into it in the first few episodes, then I'm usually all in the rest of the way.
Sure.
Because it is about selling you on the characters first, and then you'll follow the characters anywhere down any level of complexities of rules in the world that you maybe wouldn't care about in another thing. Like I feel it's scratching a similar itch that I just had with my full read through of Bakuman, because like I wanted to read it just to get into the how are comics made in Japan versus how they're made in America? Like, I was just wanted to know that. But then as I got to know the characters, I was like, I'm on this stream with them too. I want to see it. And so I'm feeling a similar itch being scratched. But even more so in this, like, not that I like the characters in Bakuman, but I didn't really I didn't super duper care about their arcs because it also felt like I know they're going to. I felt pretty sure they were going to complete it, but this doesn't have as clear an end goal of well, will they really get there? Yeah. So I'm really interested to see where it goes, and also just from a creative standpoint, how they can shake up and make a game like this be continually interesting over the arc of 44 volumes of a manga even.
So I guess look forward to our new miniseries, Chatting Chihayafuru, coming in the fall.
I will be on every episode. I will make myself do it. I don't care what you guys think. I'm going to be on every episode.
If it happens, if our fans vote for it, we'll have you on.
Chatting Chihayafuru.
Thank you, SungWon. Can you tell us where we can find you? I know you've got lots of things going on, like videos and voice acting. You're doing a lot. Really appreciate you coming here. We'll do our own plugs once you're out of here, but where can we find you?
Sure. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/ProZD, PROZD. Also on Twitter, same username. Just Google ProZD. You'll find everything I'm on. I'm a voice actor. I do videos. I do shit posts. I do a pretty good tweet now and then. So just follow my shit, and you'll see how much of a fucking nerd I am. But I was so glad I got to be on here to talk about my favorite show. Clearly, I'm very passionate about it, and I hope you guys will eventually reach that level as well.
And you're definitely invited back for something even more obscure.
Oh, I'm gonna if you bring me back on this podcast, it's just every anime I want people to watch. Which I've got recommendations for you even after we're done recording this.
Ooh,
okay.
I want to hear these.
I'm in.
Yes,
sure.
Thank you so much, SungWon.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So thanks again to our special guest, SungWon Cho, for exposing us to Chihayafuru for the first time. I am now a convert, and we hope you all are too. And please check out his stuff on YouTube and Twitter. He is ProZD on there, and he's doing a ton of voice acting. Just log on to IMDb and find out what he's doing. He did that great episode of OKKO we were talking about earlier. Check that one out.
The Wacky Jacks one is so fun. It was so awesome to get to meet him and record with him while we're in Los Angeles, California. He was so super friendly, especially I had never even met him before. You had met him one other time.
We were rubbing elbows at Disneyland. Internet stars, me and him.
And I look forward to him coming back someday and making us watch a different great obscure anime we've never heard of before.
Yes, so please check him out and everything he does. But as for us, if you want to check us out and everything that we do and support us, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons online. And if you do, and if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get every one of these podcasts and our sister podcast, What a Cartoon, 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And you'll also get all of our $5 paywalled podcasts. Far too many to list here, but you'll get all of our mini-series we've done to date for the past 2+ years, including our most recent one, Talking of the Hill, and the one that will be coming up this fall. So look out for that. And Henry, we have something going on at the $10 level for our big spenders, an extra long podcast every month.
That's right. If you sign up at the $10 and up level at Patreon, you get an extra bonus on top of all that other $5 stuff that's awesome. Our monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast, where we give a different animated feature film the same in-depth treatment and moment-by-moment analyses that you get on this podcast. Our most recent one was Beavis and Butthead Do America, and most of them go up to 4 hours long. And if you're a big-time anime fan, we have lots of anime ones on there too, including Kiki's Delivery Service and Akira. We go big and also go home because we record it at my home usually. But please sign up at the $10 level. Enjoy all those and all the upcoming ones too. Patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast. Check it out at retronauts.com. Every Monday and occasionally Friday. You can also find that in your podcast machine by just searching for Retronauts. It's been going on for, I think, 13 years, for crying out loud. So check it out if you enjoy classic video games. Henry, what about you?
You can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. Someone just followed me today when we recorded this, so be like the cool guy and follow me too. That way you'll learn about whenever new podcast goes live on both the free feed and the Patreon. No matter what, you're covered. So follow me there once more. HENEREYG.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week for the real Ghostbusters episode, Ragnarok and Roll, and we will see you then.